that feeling of my baby. I never felt my baby before. I always dreamt of it. I never thought it would happen. I never thought I'd actually carry my child and be able to cuddle her and snuggle.
I'm Carol Ofori, and this is The Comeback, a podcast about resilience, healing, and the strength it takes to keep moving forward. The journey to parenthood is supposed to be one of excitement, anticipation, and joy. But for some, it becomes a battle, one filled with hope and heartbreak. Devina Kowlas from Durban knows the battle all too well. For years, she and her husband, Levine, faced devastating loss, moments that would have made most of us give up. But somehow, through the pain, uncertainty, and the darkest of times, Devina found the strength to just keep going. What does it take to hold on to hope when the dream of holding your child feels just so out of reach? How do you carry on when the path to becoming a parent is filled with pain and uncertainty? This is a story of faith, a story of perseverance, one of an unshakable dream. This is The Comeback. Devina Kowlas joins me now to talk about her story. Welcome, Devina. How are you?
Hello, Carol. I am actually good.
Yeah.
I'm listening to you talk, though, and it's like, it feels, again, something that I put at the back. It feels so real as you say it like that. Because it kind of sums up. But also, I'm so happy to be here and to be a part of a podcast of depth like this. It's amazing, and I'm honored. And I thank you for having me.
I really appreciate you coming through and sharing your story. I can only imagine, as we unpack this for everyone watching and listening, just what a journey this has been for you. So maybe we go back to 2008 when you and hubby tied the knots, you got married. I mean, your marriage, your wedding, the day, it's so exciting. And on that day, you have so many dreams, so many hopes, and you expect everything from this point to get easier, right?
Exactly. And, we were courting at that point when we married. We married when we were together for 7 years. We were 7 years together at that point. So our plans were pretty much laid down for us, with our families and ourselves. And we thought we were perfectly healthy. Everything was already plotted, how we were going to do this. We were going to get married. We'll be happily married for a while, and then we'll have our baby, and we'll start our family, and our careers will grow and whatever. And our wedding day, 2008, was scorching. I'll never forget it. It was 38 degrees.
Wow.
It was the hottest day. By the time I was married, I had no makeup on. So it was like one of those days. But it was one of the happiest days of my life.
Yeah.
Looking back.
Right.
And so with us, I didn't immediately go to my in-laws. After a week, we go. And I remember going there, and my mother-in-law and I were very close, weirdly enough, I know. But we had a very close bond. She was like my best friend. Mm-hmm. And when I went there that day, she was already talking about her grandchildren to come. Yeah. And Levine was her baby. He was the youngest. So she's got grandchildren at this point, but they're grown. Yeah. They're big. And she was ready for us to give her her baby, her grandchild that was going to live with her in her house. It was, looking back, it was like a matter of fact. No questions. Yeah, you're going to get your baby soon. I'm going to give it to you.
Yeah.
And then it just began, and it was like...
Can you take us to your first pregnancy?
I can.
Mm-hmm. So
my first pregnancy was not planned per se. Mm-hmm. We just knew we were going to have a child. You just go with the flow in your first year of marriage. If it happens, it happens. And you're cool if it happens in the second year. You're cool if it happens later in the second year or whatever. But so when I found out I was pregnant, it was a surprise. I know people are going to say, a surprise, we're married, you're newly married. But yes, it was. We were not planning on it. Mm. But it was such, the shock settled within minutes. We were so happy. But I was ill. Mm. Like from the time, actually what prompted us to go to the doctor was that I was sick. I was like indescribably sick. And when I found out that we were pregnant, the doctor said, no, relax. It's probably just
all the morning sickness, all the stuff that comes with your body
first
changing.
Pregnancy. Yeah. Hormones and whatever. Mm-hmm. So it was fine. We took it like that with a pinch of salt, carried on. And I didn't have that many scans because I lost this baby fairly early. Mm. But the few that we did have were always joyous. There was a heartbeat. The baby was growing. And by the time I had gone for my third scan, so this was now when I was 12 weeks. And why I had done 3 at this point, sometimes at this point people only do 1. I did 3 because I was sick. I was not feeling well throughout.
The whole time.
So we kept doing scans and whatever. And then we went and we were happy because I wasn't feeling anything different in my belly. You know, everything was going to me fine. I was just throwing up a lot on that. And when I went in, the doctor looked at the screen and I could see his face change. And I didn't know what to expect. I didn't expect that. But when I looked at the screen and I was like, something's definitely off. You know, there's no arms moving, nothing's happening. It's not like what we were used to seeing. And then he, after a moment, he did say, you know what, he cannot hear or pick up a heartbeat. And I was like, okay, what does that mean?
Yeah.
That you can't pick up a heartbeat. First time pregnant, you really are full of hope.
Yes.
And to the point of ignorance.
Right.
So I'm there like, what does that mean? Does it mean you can't pick it up? Is it like you're thinking, is it the machine?
Yeah. Should I get another machine?
Yeah.
Do I need to drink some water?
Maybe have some sugar.
Yeah.
And he was like, you know, he was a doctor that was very straightforward. He wasn't going to worry. He wasn't going to
sugarcoat
and mess to check how I'm feeling or whatever. So he said, no, there's no heartbeat. This baby's not alive.
Wow. Just like that.
Just like that. Straight up. There was no time wasting. And I did not want to believe it. Obviously, I didn't want to accept it. Neither did my husband. So we said, no, can we like double check? Is there any way? And he said, the only way is to do the blood test and see my hormone levels, you know, where they're sitting at. And we ordered the blood test. And obviously, he already knew. And the blood test came back after a while. I can't really recall how long. It was like 15 years ago. But it did come back and my levels were very low to indicate that I was going to miscarry, because they can't tell you if it's going to happen.
If it's going to happen, yeah.
Because that baby wasn't going to come back. You know, she was gone and it was a girl.
Oh.
And, well, we had to accept it. But there was no time really for it to sink in, because he said, you need to have this DNC done by tomorrow morning. There was nobody else in going into theatre. It was a day, you know, it's a day procedure. So I was in those day wards. And there were other women there with other gynecological issues, older than me, you know, and they ask, you know, when you're there, you're sitting, you're waiting.
Yeah, what are you here for?
What are you here for? And that, I think, being the first time, was my hardest moment.
Wow.
Where I had to now say why I was there. And but I said it. I was never that person who wasn't going to. They were so kind. They were so nice. They were talking. They were just trying to maybe make themselves feel better before they went into theatre or whatever, you know, just talking. So I shared it. But in saying that, speaking to those women actually helped me feel okay about what was going on with me. I was like, okay, I spoke it. It's out there now. This is real. It's going to happen. And I went into theatre. I had the DNC. You go back home the very same day. And it was, I think for my husband and I, that was our first real like heartbreak together.
Yeah.
As a couple, that we felt something like loss, a shared loss. It wasn't like, and he was quite broken. But I was still hopeful. I remember not telling him, but believing, you know what, it's the first time, and I've had friends and I've known of people who, you know, the first time this has happened, and I've had, you know what, I have support and love from family and friends who were so incredible. And they had such positive things to say, like, don't worry about it, it's okay, it happens. And also, and I have to say this, the first time it happened to me, I heard about it, that it had happened to other members, family members.
Family, yeah.
And I was like, oh, but no one ever mentioned it. No one ever spoke about it. Like, why? And that helped. But it also stayed in the back of my mind that nobody ever mentioned it before.
Yeah.
Here I was 27 years old and I'm hearing about it for the first time because I went through it, you know, which didn't sit right with me at that time. But anyway, it helped me. It helped me have hope and like carry on. So we just, but now, whereas before, we were not really planning a child. We knew it was going to happen. It wasn't in our immediate plans going forward. But after that, we were like, okay, we have to have this baby now. It became a thing.
Right.
You know?
So it became a thing for those who are watching or listening, they don't realize that you speak of the first one because there were many more that followed. You experienced 8 miscarriages. And I can only imagine that each experience was different and each experience more traumatic.
100%. 100%. It was a mixture of miscarriages, and I had 3 births where I actually had the babies, where I went into 3rd trimester and I felt everything, the hope, I was going to have my baby. I was going to hold my baby. I felt my babies grow, connected with them. They were there. They were alive. They were my children. They were coming. And I don't know, and to date, I have not gotten a medical answer as to why those things have happened to me. Because every checkup I went for, we've had the fetuses checked up. I was deemed healthy. I had no issues. I had nothing to say that this is going to happen. So with the births that I had, I used to go into early labor.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
You're saying 3 births as in from the 8 miscarriages, 3 were full-term babies?
Were babies in 3rd trimester, yeah. Not full-term, 7 months.
Was pretty much full-term.
Yeah, bordering 7 months, 6 months, 7 months. Babies. I heard them cry. I birthed them full on. It was labor, the whole shebang. It was...
And what happened? They
Okay.
just stopped
It's
breathing,
It's intense because
Yeah.
In between those 3 births, I also had miscarriages.
Oh my gosh.
So I was in the middle of losing hope. I'm a person that's hopeful.
Yeah.
That's just the way I am. I'll be sad for that moment,
Yeah.
and I can very quickly move on. Because very early in my life, I learned. I don't know if you've ever read Alice in Wonderland.
I've watched the movie.
You watched the movie? Okay, if you ever read the original Alice in Wonderland, she does this thing where, I'm gonna put it in simple terms. She compartmentalizes so she can deal with whatever's going on in that weird dream of hers. She says, "I'm gonna leave it in the back of my mind. I'll deal with it later." Okay, I'm paraphrasing, but that's what she would do. So very early on in my life, I learned to do that. I decided that's the best way to cope with a hell of a lot of things coming at you. So even with these losses, I did that.
Yes.
I put it in a box, each one. I dealt with it on the day or maybe 2 weeks, and I always went back to work. I never stayed at home, or as much as I was advised to. I was a teacher. I went back to work. And why I would go back to work was those were my kids.
Yes.
No joke. Those children that I taught, they're adults now, they've got their own families. They were my lifesavers. And had I not gone back to work, I think I might have lost it and not been able to separate. So in between, I had the miscarriages and then I had the birth. So the very first one that I'd given birth to, she was a girl as well. We went into that pregnancy apprehensive. We became hopeful when I did, you do the 16 weeks bloods where they check for Downs. And after that, we were like, okay, this is going well. It's going well, and we started to plan and get into it. But then I spontaneously would go into early labor. And it's like not just a touch of labor. It was onset full labor. Everything, like I used to literally feel, that one I felt the baby drop, like she's ready to come out. And it's always a matter, like everyone in my life was on tenterhooks whenever I felt pregnant. So there was always somebody who would just pick up the phone. But this happened at school, and I had everyone, all the teachers were so loving and supportive. And they got my husband there, got me to the hospital. And I was going to either wait, because they put you on steroids, and see how long we could pull the labor so she could grow. Even if she grew by a week or whatever, maybe she'll be ready to be delivered because she was quite small. And then go to the hospital, and the doctor, he just did an internal. I wasn't ready for it. It was pain beyond, I cannot describe it. To date, I just know that I kind of blacked out. I was awake, but couldn't see anything because that pain when he did that internal was the worst thing I've ever felt. And that was because when he did that internal, he had burst the water bag. So you must know this is like, and I didn't volunteer for a, what's the word? When they induce your labor,
yes.
you know, they put in the needle.
Yes.
So this is something that I didn't, it just kind of happened and it was like intense and everything. So once that happens, your baby's in trouble now. She's already prem. But I was assured throughout my stay there that we can, if I stay elevated, we could keep her alive for maybe longer until we could deliver her. But then what happened with me was my labor progressed. There was no stopping it. I was just in intense labor for hours, and just hoping and praying that it was going to be worth it that she was going to be born. And later, much later that night, I went into labor and they delivered. I had to deliver her, but without an epidural. So I was only on pethidine. That was the only meds that I was on. I felt every contraction. I felt every time I pushed. I felt that pain like they did in medieval times, I would assume. And then when I was finally able to push her out, I heard her cry. And I was like, oh, thank God. She's alive, you know. I heard her cry. I saw her. Carol, I was happy and I like slumped back and I was like, okay, everything's okay. My husband hugged me and he was like, everything's okay. And he went out with, because remember she had been without oxygen for a long time now because there was no water. My husband went out and I thought, okay, he's like they do. They go out with the baby and check everything's okay. And then I was ready now to deliver the placenta. And I think while that was happening, he wasn't with me. I did that thinking my baby's fine. I can do this because that's like having a whole other baby. And that was over and then he came. But they didn't take me out of the delivery room very quickly. I remained there and I didn't understand like why. I'm ready to go. I was like I remember saying to the sister, can I please just get out of here now? I need to get out of here. And she was like, no, you got to wait. The doctor said you got to wait. And then my husband came back in. And I wasn't sure, but I looked at him and there was something not right. But he wasn't saying any words. He was just bawling.
You could tell something, yeah.
And I'm like, what's wrong? Is everything okay? And he's not saying anything. He was just coming closer and closer to me and hugging me and I'm saying, please just tell me everything's okay. And he said, no. You know what? She didn't make it. And I was like, what? I heard her. I saw her. She was alive. She was moving. She was breathing. And he's like, no, she didn't make it. And I said, why? And at that point, something in me like woke up and I was like not feeling drugged anymore. I was like, just tell me what happened. You know, tell me now. And he's like, no, we couldn't find an incubator for her. There was no incubator for her. And I said, are you serious? He said there was no incubator for her. So he was also quite upset, like angry, but he didn't want to show me that part. And I was like, is that why she didn't make it? He said she was too little. She needed it. She needed the NICU. You know, she needed all that it came with, but they couldn't get an incubator for her. It was all used at the time. And I was like so angry. I was so angry. But then the doctor came in and he said to my husband, you know what, she needs to rest. She's been through quite an ordeal and whatever. Anyway, I went back to the room and it was like horrific being there, being in that hospital. I just wanted to go home. I was like so over it at that point. I just wanted to go home. My husband was dealing with all of the other stuff, trying to talk to them. And then they asked us, do you want to take her home? You know? And I was, as I said, I was highly high-strung at that moment. I was emotional. I was broken. I was angry. I was like, no, I don't want to take her home. What am I going to do with her at home? You know? And my husband we were on the same page. He was like, we're going to take her home and bury her, have a funeral. Can you do that? He asked me, can you do that? And I said, no, I don't think I can do that. I'd rather remember her the way I did and the way I saw her and whatever. And he was like, he agreed with me and we left it to the hospital and they do an incineration process. I regret it. So part of me does regret it, but it was easier, I felt, when we went home because then we could just go home and like move on. But after her, I had a very similar experience with another baby. He was a boy, almost identical circumstance. Same as a nurse did an internal, burst the water bag. But he was bigger. So the hope was there that he was going to
Make
survive,
it.
my son, yeah.
And what happened with him?
It's exactly the same.
No
Heard him
incubator?
cry. No, he was in an incubator. They did, but he just
Stop breathing.
didn't make it. They couldn't revive him. But I heard him, and he lived longer than her. She lived 45 minutes. He lived for about an hour.
Wow, Devina. I thought you were going to tell me a day or two at least, and you're saying 45 minutes, an hour.
And for me, that hour was like, and he was in the same room with me for a bit. And I was like so happy. I was like, okay, we did this. And that one I did with an epidural. It was my first ever epidural. So I thought, okay, we're doing it the right way. This is all old school. He's bigger. I'm like, in my third trimester, he's going to be okay. He's going to make it. So for me, it was like, he's going to make it. This guy's going to make it. And I had a private delivery room. So we did everything in that room. Even like I delivered the placenta and I stayed in that room. So I didn't have to move around. But after I had him and we got the news that he didn't make it, I knew because we were in the same room. I didn't want to look at him. I looked at him when he was born and I was like, no, I'm done. I'm over this. I can't. And he also looked exactly like my son. I don't know. God was playing what games with me, but anyway.
Yeah.
And he was gorgeous. And I said, if he's not going to open his eyes, I don't want to look at him.
Did you ever name any one of these babies? You feel if you gave them a name, it would make you more attached and more difficult?
I think if I gave them a name, being able to move on and start again would have been very difficult for me. Even if I took them home and had a funeral. You know, I know honoring them is important, which is what I try so hard to do now.
Yeah.
Especially with my two existing children, my living babies.
Yeah.
I talk about their siblings all the time. They know the whole story, and it's not like I won't honor my babies. That's my strength. That's one of the healing tools. That's something I have in my arsenal, where I remember them and I talk about them and I feel better.
Yeah. I was actually going to ask you, how did you find the strength to just keep going?
You know, that's such a good question. And I have to say, you don't even know you're finding the strength because you don't even know that you're strong. It happens, and you, like with me, as I said, I am a half glass, half full kind of person. That's who I am. I generally, I find it hard to keep heavy things that weigh me down. I find it hard to do that. So I find ways to like put it there so I can deal with it some other time. So with these things, how I found the strength was without realizing I was, because when I lost them, I was teaching matric and grade 10, 11, and 12. So those are like children who depended on me.
Yeah.
So I was able to say, okay, this has happened to me, but my kids need me. I need to be there for them. And when it's my turn, I'll deal with it.
Yeah.
So without even realizing, and I think this is for all of you ladies out there who've been through this, you don't even realize your strength. You don't even realize you're doing it.
Yeah.
You know, and you do it and you just feel better.
Yeah. And that's the thing about stories like yours, is you telling your story, you are giving strength to somebody else by just living your life and overcoming in your life every day. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
Thank you. And the truth is, Carol,
Yeah.
telling my story is not something, I'm not telling it for any kind of recognition or want people to know me, whatever. It's because, I always say this, because of the stigma attached to miscarriages and losing babies. As women, we were supposed to procreate, give the world the next generations. That's our job over and above everything else. And if we fail at that, the stigma, people may not say it out loud, it is there. What is wrong with her? And you think, what is wrong with me? Why is this happening to me? I mean, I don't understand. And I've been there. I had really dark days, Carol. But you're going to have the dark days. You have to have the dark days to experience the days that are light.
Yeah. There is no light without darkness, and there is no darkness without light.
And to question it.
Yeah.
To question, like, why? And the answer is, it's not that there's anything wrong with us. It is something that people don't talk about that is happening more often than we actually realize.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because no one wants to talk about it.
Now, was there ever a moment where you thought, I'm giving up, I'm just not going to try having babies anymore. This is too much trauma for me. Me and my husband will just live together, and if we want kids, we will adopt, or whatever other conversations
No,
that you may have had.
100%. We did get there. I think it was after the little boy, we were like, we're done. And my husband said, I'm done. I can't do this. And you know, I will always take my hat off to him, because he didn't say he's done because, oh, I'm not giving him a baby or whatever. He used to say, I can't see you go through this anymore. And after he was born, I was like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. I really can't do it anymore. And I said to him, I remember having that conversation, I don't know if my body can actually do this. I don't know if I'm designed to carry a baby full term that will survive, you know? And he was so non-judgmental and supportive. And if everything that has happened in our lives, that's the one thing that I will always hold on to, that he never was disappointed in me or judged me. He was like, if you don't want to do this, we're not doing this.
Right.
But we did have the conversation. There are so many babies without mommies and daddies. There's so many mommies and daddies without babies.
Yeah.
And I said, all I want to do is to be able to nurture. And because you know what, when you have so many pregnancies, you're a mom, you know.
Yeah.
It's a lot of emotions.
Oh, yeah.
And it's your hormones, and it doesn't just go away. And with the way I was falling pregnant, one after the other, I wasn't giving my body and my mind a chance to actually heal and get over it. It was all there, like stored. And I needed to give this love, and whatever I had it in me, I needed to give it to another child. I just had to. I felt like I had to get it out. I had nieces and nephews, lots of children at school, which I tried to give out as much as I could, but it wasn't the same. I wanted my own. And that's when he said, okay, let's do this. Let's adopt.
All right.
And we started the process very, not rigidly, like we didn't get like into it. We just started it like with the idea of us.
Start moving that way, yeah.
Let's slowly, it's something now we're willing to entertain and do and whatever. So we did start the process, and then bam, I fall pregnant again. So I was like, Levine, what are we going to do now? I said, no, we got to abandon this and let's see how this goes. Let's see how it goes. I mean, and he said, it's not that we can never adopt. You can always, you know, but let's see. And I think he was quite happy also, because he had just lost his mom. And that pregnancy was amazing. I can't tell you, it went so well. And I was so happy. I was like, we started planning, and finally we were like in this place where this girl is coming, and we were so happy. And again, exactly the same, no different to the other two. I went into early labor. It was, but with this pregnancy, I had a stitch. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yes,
I had
I've heard of the stitch,
put in at 12 weeks. I had the stitch put in, so I was confident everything was now fine. I was on the strong steroids, I was on progesterone, I was doing everything.
Right. And for context for those, the stitch is when the doctor literally stitches you down below to help keep the baby in.
Yes, it closes your cervix. So
yes,
I always say it used to feel like a cable tie situation.
Yes.
And you go into theatre and they do it, and I actually felt very secure.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, and I was growing, and I had this belly, and I had this baby that was big and moving and living her best life, and every appointment was successful. Every blood test was like, we actually let go of that anxiety for the first time.
Yeah.
And then again it happened, but this time it happened with a stitch in. So with the stitch in, it complicated matters now. Blessed be they couldn't do an internal because I had the stitch in.
Yeah.
But I was now in progressive labor, like bad. It was so fast. This one was faster than the previous two. I was like in progressive, painful labor. There was no time to give me pain meds. Not even Pethidine, there was no time. I had to go straight and I delivered sitting up like this on a chair. It wasn't like stirruped or anything. It was like a chair because there was just no time. But remember, there's a stitch in. Before they can even
be removed first, before anything.
Yeah. So before they can even get to the baby, that stitch had to come out with no pain meds.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, he asked my consent. I said, just get it out, because at this point it's indescribable pain.
Yeah.
It's like, I think now I have a very high pain tolerance.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, I have a super high pain tolerance. I don't even know when I'm in actual pain.
Yeah.
I think maybe because of my experiences, but that was literally no pain meds. I was oxygen only just to breathe with the pain. And when he took that stitch out, the water just flowed out because obviously the water bag was ready to just burst. And she came out within minutes. And the blood was unbelievable. I'll never forget. My husband is standing there and he was like, but he was happy because she came out crying.
Yes.
Again. He was thrilled. He's like, she's okay. And I said, no, I know she's okay. And but same like with the boy, he went away to clean her up and bring her back to me, and she didn't. He was gone for about an hour, I would say. He says for about an hour, so probably an hour. And it was literally the same story.
It's a lot you've gone through, Devina, and then in totality, you've had 10 pregnancies with 2 living babies, a beautiful girl and boy. Tell us about your first child being born and going past that hour or 2 hour mark and then going home with your baby.
Carol. She's sitting here and I must remember that. And it's like, I fell pregnant with her a very short while after I lost that baby girl. Mm-hmm. It was like a few months. And I didn't even know that I was pregnant because how? Yeah. That's what kept going through my mind, like how? But I felt ill and I went to the doctor. He said, do a pregnancy test. And I was like, nah, no way. And he said, just do it. And I did. And I was pregnant and did a few because I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
And I had terrible morning sickness with her. Mm-hmm. It was bad. But they were very quick. Like put the stitch in very quick at 12 weeks. I was on the, the hormones, progesterone and everything for like nobody. I had a new gynae at this point. No one wasted any time. And it was smooth sailing except that I kept going into early labor with her. Mm. But it was so well planned. Like my doctors were they never wasted any time. If I made a phone call and said I got a cramp, even if it was like a nothing, I was immediately admitted. But it was never nothing. It was always labor.
Something, yeah.
And then there's special medications to stop the labor. But I'm saying it depends also, and I hate saying this on a podcast, but who your doctor is.
Yeah.
And how much they're willing to put in for you.
Yeah.
And previously, maybe my doctors thought, hey, she's losing the baby, whatever. I don't know. I don't know what the thought process is in that because I felt that way, But because when I see how these doctors were working, I'm thinking, why didn't the others do this?
Right.
Why wasn't I put on progesterone before?
Right.
Why did they take so long to do this and decide that? And, with these doctors, as soon as I was in labor, I was immediately put on meds. I was on bed rest. I was in hospital for a few days. Back home, normal. I was like a house with Lonika. That's how successful that pregnancy was.
Yeah.
And as much as I was going into labor, it was like when we reached 7 months, we were like, breathe easy now. And the day I went into labor with her, like a week before I actually had her.
Yeah.
So they put me on the special meds to get permission from the medical aid and whatever. I remember it was such a drama. But I was constantly on pain meds. So by the time I had her, I was high as the clouds.
Right.
But it worked.
Yes.
So I went into labor with her at 32 weeks. They managed to pull it till the day 1 of 34 weeks. So she was 100% ready now. She was a baby it was just her lungs. So they gave us the steroids for her lungs to get her lungs ready. And we were planning maybe for the 25th or towards the end of Jan for her to come out, but not her. She didn't want to wait. So on our wedding anniversary.
And that is? 20th
of January. 2013, she was like, I'm going to be the present.
Right.
And my labor was like intense. I couldn't wait anymore. We couldn't wait anymore. And her heart rate was going and everything. So I think at about 7:30, I had a Caesar, which is so different to a natural birth.
Yes.
It's like a holiday.
Yeah, I know. I had to.
Oh, you had to. I'm just lying there. I'm like, what are they doing? I can feel tongue pull, but I'm like, okay, no
What's
pain.
happening?
Like, this is cool. And I was, as I said, I was pretty high at this point.
Yeah.
And I heard her cry and they put her here. Her eyes were wide open and she was screaming like this. I still remember. All I remember seeing was arms and legs because she was so premature baby, but tall. She had like only arms and legs. She was like the spider. And she was just screaming. And that joy was something I could never fully put into any kind of words. I can't explain it. And the fact that I could hear the doctors celebrating all around me, and they were like, oh, she's here, and she's like this, and she weighs this much, and whatever. And I was like, okay, she's okay. She's going to be fine. But I waited, and and obviously now, so with the Caesar, it's reverse.
Yes.
Baby out, stitch after. So I had a good 30 minutes before I got out of there.
Yeah.
And my husband went away, and he told me, what, she's okay. She looks good. She's fine. And we got very close with our ped from that day.
Yes.
And he kept giving us reassurances. Every time he checked her, he kept giving us reassurances.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I could only see her the next day because she was in the NICU. Yeah. And I couldn't walk. So I saw her the next day. I didn't see her the day she was born, after I held her. And they said to me, I'm not allowed to walk.
Okay.
I said, no, I can't wait for a wheelchair. I have to see my baby now.
Yes.
I told my husband, get me out of this bed. I need to see her now. So he said, you sure? And I said, no, I want to. I have to. And I did that walk but I did it. I was like, I felt worse. And I walked it was Parklands Hospital, so it's quite close.
Okay.
And she was not in an incubator. She was out of the incubator by then. I think she only spent the night in the incubator, this fighter. And she was being fed through a tube. But they said that she clearly was ready to suck, to eat, like normal. And they said, but they're scared because she was quite small. She was literally, if you look at my hand, I got quite a big palm for a woman, right? She was from there to here.
Wow, that's tiny.
That was Blonica, right? That was her size. Even with her long legs and arms, that there to my wrist. That was how big she was. And I looked at her with all the tubes, and I was like, and her eyes wide open. I should have brought a picture. And I'm thinking, this girl is amazing. How is she so strong? And no, she was just chilling with all of this in her. Then they said, do you want to feed her? And I said, if she's ready, I honestly don't mind. They said, okay, maybe let's give her an hour. And then as she was with the tubes and whatever, they placed her on me. And then they say skin to skin kind of heals. And they placed her on me, and it was the best feeling imaginable. That feeling of my baby, I never felt my baby before. I always dreamt of it. I never thought it would happen. I never thought I'd actually carry my child and be able to cuddle her and snuggle. And the fact that I got to do it, it was like, it's so amazing. And while she was on me, she was like sucking. You know how babies do? They're so rude. It's like, okay. The nurse said, you know what, this baby looks like she's ready now. She's ready to eat. And I said, what do you mean eat? Like, they said, we're going to take all this off. Do you want to watch? And I said, of course I want to watch. And she was tiny but so strong. She was grabbing at everything, and I'm thinking, God, this girl. And they fed her that day when I never thought that they'd be able to, because they told me she'd probably only be able to feed properly in a month or so, because she was quite small. Yeah. But she fed from a bottle. And I actually did manage to breastfeed her that day. It wasn't very successful because she was so tiny.
Yes.
But she did it. And she continues to do it.
Unbelievable. I mean, I'm just sitting on the fact that she was born on your wedding anniversary. Yeah. A few years later, after the journey you had walked, you go on to have another child, a beautiful baby boy. And in totality, that is 10 pregnancies. And the trauma, the emotional journey, the roller coaster, all of it, and you have 2 beautiful, healthy children, and of course 8 heavenly kids that are still part of your family. So many women go through this, and so many couples go through this, where they just lose children, or infertility is a real problem for them. And they may be watching right now. They may be listening right now. And I think you are very versed to give us encouragement, what you'd say to someone who's experiencing something similar.
The first thing I want to say is that losing, be it a baby, anyone that you've loved, is intense, right?
Yeah.
But for those of us who have lost without actually getting the chance to meet that person, you're growing this person, you're feeling them grow, you're feeling them move, you're bonding, and you're just not getting the chance to experience that person in real life. It's like it's not an easy thing to actually describe. So for people who are going through that, I want to say, don't ever feel ashamed to reach out. Don't ever feel ashamed to ask someone you know who's been through it. For me, the thing that got me through all of this was that I had the most incredible support system. And I was not shy to ask them for their support. I needed them. You cannot walk this journey alone. It's your loss, I know. I know as a mother, only you know what you felt. I know what you felt. I felt it. But had I not had the love and support from my husband, who was incredible through it all, my in-laws, who never, ever let me down, my parents, my sisters, I turned to them, my friends, my students, and I was always ready to talk about it. If somebody asked me, how are you? I would talk. Don't ever say I'm fine when you're not. Don't ever say that. And the thing is, with infertility, hope was, and I said this before, and this is something that I hold dear to, hope was the last thing that flew out of Pandora's box. Why is that? Almighty gave us that. Hope is not something to be underestimated. Strength is there. It is there. Your strength is there. There's no one that's weak. You are as strong as your experience is. You have your experience, you will overcome. But never ever, giving up must be but a momentary lapse. It must not be your option.
Right. You can take breaks, but don't give up.
Take breaks, but don't. Have your dark days also. Wallow. You deserve it. Grieve. You deserve it. You have to grieve. But keep your baby's memories alive. Keep the idea that you're going to have your baby alive. Don't let it die. And as I said before, there are so many moms and dads without babies. There's so many babies without moms and dads. There's never no option.
Right.
There's always an option.
There's never no option. I love that. Looking back at your journey, what do you think it's taught you?
Your show is about resilience. And I think it's taught me that to be resilient, it's not just about not giving up. To be resilient, you have to learn, and I'm going to sound repetitive, to appreciate the people in your life, to appreciate the blessings that you do have. Maybe this has happened, but your story is already written. Doesn't mean, and this is what I learned, and I hope people take this, God helps those who help themselves. Yes, He's written your story for you, but He doesn't mind if you nudge Him a little bit. And if you say to Him and you manifest and you believe. I believe in manifesting positive things for your life. And not holding on to, you're going to have the negativity on your days. As I said, those days we are allowed, but don't latch on to that. You'd rather latch on to tomorrow morning when you're going to wake up and feel better. So that I've learned from everything that I've been through. Never give up. Never lose yourself in the dark days and the dark moments. Understand that is passing. And there's a quote that I used to love when I was younger. And when I used to lose the babies, I always thought of it. I don't know, the mayor of Casterbridge, there was a character named as Elizabeth Jane. She was the mayor's daughter. And it was a running theme in the book. And a lot of people look at it as a pessimistic quote. But she would say, happiness is but an episode in the general drama of life. If you are a half empty glass person, you're going to look at it as pessimistic. But I look at it as positive. Because yes, happiness is but a moment in the general drama of life. But why not hold on to that moment? That's the moment that counts.
Yeah.
That's the defining moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is what I've taken. Look for the happy moments, latch on to that.
Right.
Look for the joyous, hopeful moments and hopeful stories, latch on to that, and don't get lost in the dark.
Don't get lost in the dark. Look, rising after unimaginable heartbreak and never giving up is clearly the center of who you are. So, as the podcast is called, The Comeback, what does the comeback mean to you?
Oh, comeback. You know what? It's so powerful.
Yeah.
This podcast is so powerful.
Yeah.
Because after every downfall, your downfall must not be where it ends. You have to make that comeback. And my comeback obviously was my babies, But with them, I had to come back. I had to be more than what I was. I had to be more than just their mum. I had to be somebody that they could turn to, they could look up to. They needed to look up to me. I needed to be a role model to them. So when I came back, I tried to come back as strong as I could. With career-wise, education-wise, I tried to do everything that I know that they would one day aspire to. They look and say, Mom did it.
Yeah.
You know, that's my comeback. And I didn't do it alone. So I want to thank everybody who's been there in my team.
In your team. Well, Devina, thank you so much for sharing your story with such honesty, with such courage, and such vulnerability. It's so beautiful. Your journey is a reminder that even in our darkest moments, hope and perseverance, we must just keep going and keep searching and wanting something beautiful for our lives. So I appreciate you coming on The Comeback and allowing us to walk the path with you. And thank you so much once again for being with us on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Carol. It's been an honor. And I'm still starstruck. So
Thank you. Now, if you know someone who needs to hear this, please share this podcast with them. And don't forget to follow The Comeback with Carol Ofori so you never, ever, 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 ever miss an episode of strength, resilience, and of course, of coming back.
The Comeback with Carol Ofori is an East Coast Radio podcast.